I'd just like to introduce our panel of chairs. Firstly, Juliet Brown, OAM, Independent Chair of Statewide, and also the AIST Trustee of the Year Award winner for this year. Juliet is also the Chair of Lifetime Support Authority, Director of Medical Insurance Australia, and member of the SAS Australian Financing Authority Advisory Board. Please welcome Juliet. Next we have Angela Emslie, Independent Chair of HESTA, and as mentioned, the former President of AIST and IOS, and Director of AIST since 2002. Angela is also Director of Frontier Advisors, member of the Industry Superstrate Advisory Council, Director of Suicide Prevention Australia, and recently appointed Director of the PRI. Please welcome Angela. And lastly, we have Nick Johnson, Independent Chair of SAS Trustees Corporation, State Super. Nick is also the Chairman of the Sydney Institute and Chairman of the National Arts School. Previously has been Chairman of... So as I said before, I've got a number of questions, but we will defer to you as we go through for questions, and please certainly feel free to turn the chairs around. We might ask with a question just about the general challenges that funds are facing, and maybe we'll just cover the top three from each of you of what you're thinking. So Juliet, I might start with you. What are the key challenges that you're facing as a chair and as a fund?
Thanks, Tom, and thank you for having me here today. I feel as though I am the minnow in the company of my two colleagues here. I come from that state of South Australia where we were without power. And our fund's only $6.5 billion. So our challenges are different from the challenges I'm sure that Nick and Angela have, but in some ways they're probably the same. The three that concern me most at the moment, because of, if you think about the economy of South Australia in particular, and that we're losing cars, and we are gaining apparently some submarines, but we've had terrible trouble with steelworks, and it has been difficult. It's members growing the fund. And to do that is obviously membership engagement. That whole thing, and I know you read about it all the time, but it is membership engagement, and I come from a professional services background and a membership organisation background, and it's always about the people, and in fact, so I think all these businesses are really we're all very similar in many ways, and it's striking. It's that ability to connect with your members and make sure that we're providing them with something that is really valuable. So I won't go into detail at the moment, but membership engagement is absolutely critical for us as a challenge. Legislation, number two to me, is any change in legislation is costly, and that is something that if continuous change for a fund that's particularly of our size is costly to members, and if we just continue to keep having change after change after change, that managing those costs is going to be increasingly difficult. And the obvious one from our size is scale. We're obviously, we need to be large enough to be cost effective, and if we can't grow organically, clearly at some stage we have to consider a merger. I mean, that's sort of blatantly obvious. On the other side of the scale though, I would say, and this is a general comment, that one can become so large as that scale may become a constraint. And I'm thinking one thing at Statewide we have of recent years had very, very good investment returns, and I suspect that one can get to a size, and I'm not suggesting my friends here are in that size, but one can get to a size where one can't be as nimble as one would like to be, and outperformance is more of a challenge. So it's finding that nice neat sweet spot, which I think is a real challenge.
Juliet, I might come back to you on on a few of those. But Nick, what about your 3 challenges that you have for your fund as chair?
Well, let me answer it this way. That is a story rather than just giving you a list of things. As I reflected on this over the last week or two, I guess when you think about the history of the industry, once upon a time, let's tell a story, once upon a time, all of us were pretty small. We were all very small funds. We've been established by various superannuation legislative initiatives, and most of us started up as small trustee bodies, administering small amounts of money. Then we all started getting bigger as a result of compulsory contributions, and some of us got bigger faster than others, depending on how many members we had. And the original model of outsourcing everything to asset managers, to admin suppliers and so on, tended to evolve. And then most of us became middle-sized. By that stage, lots of us had in-house administration teams, in-house investment teams, and so our costs were ticking on quite nicely, but it didn't matter because we're still growing fast. Now, some of us are still mid-sized. State Super, I'd say, is a large mid-sized fund. Some of us are really, really big, are getting bigger, like First State would be an example that springs to mind. I say that because it's Jem for First State. But some of us are really, really small. And so I think, when I think about the challenges, and it was mentioned just now, this issue of scale is very interesting. The scale affects all of us rather differently. If you're one of these really big outfits with a huge growing member base, revenues coming in, you can afford to do things yourself. You can get economies of scale to have in-house administration. You can have economies of scale to have lots of experts investing in infrastructure, investing in all the markets. And we see it in Australian Super, First State, Uni Super. These guys are changed in-house, in-source everything. On the other end of the scale, the smaller funds, I do wonder as to why they are doing this. And so the cost per transaction of insourcing too much when you're a very small fund, I think is a huge problem facing the industry. And that's a long way of saying, well, where does State Super fit in all of that? As a mid-sized fund, we've taken the view, because we're not actually a growth fund anymore, we are essentially a closed fund, that our strategy is better to be more of a back to the future type of strategy, where we're consciously going to outsource more and more of our things, to keep our core responsibilities as a trustee, but try and drive down costs by outsourcing investment management, outsourcing administration, outsourcing custodian, and having massive amounts of scrutiny. So we're changing the nature of our business to be one of looking hard at the way we engage with our outsourced suppliers. That's a long answer, and I guess we can drill more into it later on, but that, to my mind, is the big challenge. What sort of fund are you, and how are you going to respond to scale in all of this?
Thanks, Nick. Ange?
Thank you. I was picking up probably from Nick's story. I was looking at HESTA is going to turn 30 next year, and that ESG I think is going to turn 25 next year. I don't know if that's right. I think we've really had tailwinds when you consider that HESTA is now 34 billion, 800,000 members. We've really ridden the growth of ESG. We've ridden the growth of our sector, the health and community services sector, and we've also made some really good decisions early on about making sure that we got the illiquidity premium, and that's really showed through in our returns, and we've got great returns for members over the long term, so we've got a good track record. But looking forward, I think there's much more headwinds. So I think there's the key headwinds are obviously the economic environment and how we're going to get returns for our members. And most of our members, 84%, I think, are female and low account balances. They really need good returns for a comfortable retirement. So we still have an objective of CPI +4, and I think that's going to be a really tough challenge over the next 10 years. So I think the economic environment and getting investment returns. I think on the investment return side, there's also the issue of fees, because although it is about net benefit to members, fees do matter, particularly in a low return environment. And also, I suppose on the issue of scale, we're a fast growing fund. We're going to be over, by 2030, we'll be, I think something like 100 challenge. I think it's the banks in the Senate, in Parliament at the moment, and I think there really is a question mark about the social license to operate the financial services sector, and I think we will get tarred with the same brush if we keep going down the track that we're going. And thirdly, there's a lot of reputation risk for funds as we grow and as members get more and more concerned about the finance sector, about values. There's a rising tide of values. So I think there are a lot of reputation issues that we need to take into account, and that's probably also to do with our growing size.
Thank you. So out of that, I've got one question for you each, but certainly the others, please jump in. So, Juliet, you were talking this notion of scale versus engagement. I think it'd be interesting to try and expand on that. The smaller you are, the more you might be able to say that we can communicate directly with members. The bigger you are, it's harder. Is there a sweet spot? So actually being mid-sized funds actually no good. Like should be small or really big. How do you find that mixture in the middle of that continuum of scale versus engagement?
That's a very good question, Tom. I think I knew the real answer to that. I've been on an absolute winner.
Oh.
But look, all that I guess being in South Australia, being a central city, state that we are, we actually have the luxury of people being able to actually come into our office.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got a ground floor there set up, so you can actually come and talk to someone if you wish, and the same with Super SA, the other really large fund in South Australia. But to issue member engagement means I've got to actually even get them across the door away, and I think that comes obviously down to all this technology that we've got to be of value. I mean, and we've got to get that right, and I think we are still really only so far down the track of even working out exactly what we know and should know about our members. So until we can get to know our members better, it's that even attracting them through those sorts of means is going to be difficult. And the scale issue comes with the cost, obviously, doing that. But with technology, I mean, it's obviously easier to run out something which covers thousands of members than, I don't think it matters, quite frankly, in that way. So I don't see, I suspect we're not as far down the path as quite a few people in this room would be.
Right.
In general.
Have you worked out yet what is valuable to your members, or is that a process to go
It's a
through
process
now?
we're going through. We've appointed a new chief executive who commenced with us on the 1st of January. So we've been through a whole new strategic planning phase, and that is part of what he's rolling out. Of course, he's former NAB person, some would say he's come from the dark side. But I would say that banks have been very good at getting to know their members and being valuable to their members or their customers.
Yes.
And he is assisting us very much too in that space.
Great. Nick, a separate question. You made a comment, and I think I got it right, that you believe that outsourcing can drive down investment costs. There are the other funds in the room that, from what I can see, are doing precisely the opposite. They're insourcing to drive down investment costs. Are you able to talk a little bit about your ideas of this outsourcing driving down investment costs?
Yeah. Well, isn't it wonderful everyone has different points of view on these things? There's quite a lot of empirical evidence globally around what constitutes world-class investment management, both not just in terms of flat returns, but in terms of governance of the way the investment management function is run, the risk management. We've been working with KeyCorp, who used a UK firm to do some benchmarking on the way our our funds are managed and how we compare globally against these key criteria.
Yeah.
It isn't just a question of paying $1 million more or less, I don't think, in the fee. It's a question of how responsive people can be. To what extent have you properly delegated authority to your fund managers? Do you just simply have to refer back up to the trustee if you want to tilt your level of foreign exchange exposure? In fast-changing markets, it's essential to delegate quite a lot of authority, but within sensible risk parameters. And so, a lot of work is being done there. Now, of course, you can do this in-house. But this goes back to the point I was making earlier. Doing this thing really well up to world-class standards, this is not a trivial job. And it's expensive. And I just think that, certainly from our point of view, sure, we still do have a team of in-house investment professionals, but a lot of the day-to-day interaction with asset management, with asset managers, is devolved right the way down, and so we are empowering asset managers to a pretty high level.
Great. And I noticed in what you were talking about, CPI is 4% in the current environment. CPI is low, so that helps in a way. But is one of the questions that we're talking about, you also mentioned reputation, is how are you communicating that to your members? Is that one of the key things that HESTA is looking at, the communication of long and low and the returns?
It is something that we're constantly thinking about how we communicate that to our members so they can make the best decisions about their futures as they have information. We have been saying that we still want to target CPI plus 4 over the long term. We don't see that that's our objective over the short to medium term. So that's really what we're trying to see. We don't see that that's what we're going to achieve over the medium term, but over the long term we still think that that's what we need to target for them to get a good return.
And does that, as a follow-up question with regards to reputation, is that an area that reputations could be damaged if we miscommunicate that as an industry and as a fund?
I think if we do miscommunicate it, I think you need to communicate that it's a target that we're going to achieve and what we've really comfortably outperformed CPI plus 4 since inception, so 29 years. So we've done pretty well so far. I think in terms of reputation risk, I think there's a whole range of issues like member activism. I think in the next couple of days it's going to be divestment day or something. And I think we do need to get better at communicating to members how we invest and that we're actually active owners of capital rather than divestors of capital. So I think we can get better at how we communicate to members about what they own as members and how we're acting on their behalf so that we are seen as trusted custodians of their money.
Okay. We might come back to stewardship and ESG later, but I thought we might sort of change tack and talk about boards and what the boards of the future look like. So Juliet, I might go to you first. What do you think is required in the board of the future?
In the super industry, and in particular the type of fund that I'm involved with, is going to be a smaller board. It should be a small board. We have 11 board members. It's too large. I'm firmly the view that it's too large. My ideal would be around 7, but I can't get to that. I think that would be quite amazing. I think that we would have gone way past all these arguments about independence and whatever it is. I've worked on a lot of boards that are not super boards, and I don't think independence is the issue. It is skills, and I think the board of the future is going to be a very skilled-based board. And I don't think that I think you can live with the equal representation model in the, to accomplish that. But at the moment, I don't see that happening everywhere. But I think the board of the future needs to be totally skills-based. And I might say that having worked in super, the diversity that I've come across on boards over the years has been terrific, but, and that has added, I think, to our decision making, but I think this skills issue is going to become more and more critical.
Nick, what do you think about the board of the future? What does it need to be? What's the life?
Well, I confess, I must make a mention to the whole room. There's quite a large number of my board of the present from the state super here.
Would you like to answer a question?
That said, my observations are that we, like other industry funds, have got a large number of, well, half the board is employer appointed, half is employee appointed. As an independent chair, I probably come in more from the employer perspective. There is a tendency for groupthink to set in here, and that's particularly true amongst the employer appointees. A lot of us come at this from a background in finance, and so I made a comment when I talk to some of them. I almost know what they're going to say, and they know what I'm going to say before we say it, because we come at things from a very similar mindset. What you do get with the diversity is a very different point of view. And I've said this to my colleagues, that I'm often quite surprised at the different perspective which you get. And it does make you just sit and think for a second, well, gosh, maybe I'm not right, maybe I should spend a bit more time analysing this, and it's a hard thing for me to come to grips with it, but it does happen. And so in that sense, I think I agree, we need more skills. But I was a bit sceptical when I stepped into this superannuation role a year ago. I thought the model would be a lot more cumbersome than it turned out to be. I've actually found it quite beneficial.
Right. From your perspective?
I think the board of the future still needs to have that members first focus as the primary. HESTA is a values-based organisation, and that's where our values come from, our representative trustee system, and the fact that our trustees understand our members and our employers and the sector that we work in. I do think, depending on the organisation, some organisations will need to bring in more skills around investments. You know, if you're going to have in-house investments, you need to have people that are very sophisticated to monitor and keep internal teams accountable. So I think that will change for some funds. And I do think it is about skills in some areas and about time. I think it's about people who have the time. We started off probably, I think Nick was referring to this earlier, very much as a cottage industry early on, where the trustees did a lot of the work, and that there was a fairly small trustee office. I think it's all been turned on its head now, and the role of the trustees is much more strategic, values-based, and holding the organisation to account. So I think we need to have people who have a mix of experience and diversity, and also have the time to put into that level of holding people to account. So it's a different role to actually doing the work that the trustees probably started off doing, manageability grades. It's just not about that influence, it's about accountability.
Can I pick on one word that you all mentioned, diversity, and it's been sort of spoken about in the employee capacity a little bit, maybe a touch on gender. Naomi Edwards on Tuesday spoke about age. John Brunby spoke about ethnicity. I mean, particularly Naomi said, well, it would be great to have a 20-year-old on board, just to get the idea of what's happening digitally and those sorts of things. Have you got, what's your, I guess, thoughts on what does diversity mean? How broad does diversity go? Juliet, would you like to have a...
Yeah. No, well, our board needs to become more diverse from an age perspective. And that's partly why I'm disappearing often to the horizon at the end of December. But we've now got a 26-year-old just come on, and he told me I sounded like his mother. Which,
he made a mistake.
no, he hadn't. I told him that in terms of his future career as a director of statewide, that he needed to complete his degree. That's apparently what his mother's been telling him. And I said that we would assist in making sure, we get the time, and he's only going to go on one committee to start off with and all that sort of thing. But already I can see that he spoke at only came to his first meeting the other day, and it was good. He spoke up and he had a fresh view. It was a young view. It was like having my 33-year-old on the board or whatever, and I try not to be a mother. No, so I mean, you do. I think it is a value, and I think the equal representation model has allowed that to happen much more easily than in any other corporate area that I've had experience with. And people, they get young people on board and they think, oh my God, they can make a contribution. And they do, and it's great to see. And I don't know how you get that to happen in other parts of Australia corporate life. The equal representation model does, I think, ensure that happens. And we've got a 34-year-old as well on our board. In fact, and I think another one is 35. So we're actually becoming younger. And us oldies are starting to, the baby boomers are starting to move off into the sunset.
Nick, what about you on the...
God, 34, that sounds pretty young, doesn't it? Look, you had my other comments about the need to avoid groupthink, and an active diversity policy is very good. In terms of male-female balance, certainly on state team, we've got 4 male and 4 female, and an independent chair, which happens to be me. So we are pretty balanced in that sense. What I do agree though with is the fact that some of the changes are being driven by technology changes. And so whether that means you need a 20-year-old to give you that perspective on how you communicate with your member base through social media, well, perhaps. But one thing's for sure is the way it was done 10 years ago is not the way it was done today. When I was chairman of Pillar, Pillar is a back office service provider behind State Super, First State Super, ComSuper, and others. The centre point of Pillar's administration was that the mail depot, and every morning a huge mail truck would roar into this central courtyard and empty all the mailbags onto the floor, all of which would be open, and there'd be a sea of paperwork madly being copied, passed on through dozens of people. Now, of course, that's totally different. Payments come in through SuperStream, through gateways, and the old building seems rather empty and abandoned when the mail trucks don't come roaring up. So the sort of people we need on the board have changed.
Angela?
Probably don't want to repeat what's been said. I agree with what's been said. I think at the end of the day it's about cognitive diversity. I mean, we've probably dealt with gender diversity and we have good age diversity on our board, but I think, and I agree with Juliet, I think that the equal rep system has delivered good diversity in terms of cognitive diversity, gender diversity, and for us, age diversity. But I do think it's about different sorts of thinking, which I think you were getting at earlier.
So can I then move to a question about the role of the board versus the role of management? And maybe we could talk about that. So Juliet, you might start in what do you see as the role of the board, and where does it jump across with, how does it work in conjunction with the role of management?
Okay. And I am very much a person who thinks the board should stick to setting a strategy in conjunction with management and holding all of ourselves accountable for implementing that strategy. Management must be allowed, though, to go off and implement. And I see, and we've had to admit at statewide that some of our, I think probably as a result of a merger, many board members probably got too operational, and it's been quite a journey to get them to step back. But ever since we appointed our new chief executive from the 1st of January, we have stepped back, and he has his business plan, he has his KPIs, and it's all very clear. And I think I'm getting the board to step back themselves and act more like a strategic board than one that gets, I have to say, to operation.
So Nick, I'll let you have
And
a
so,
say.
can I just say one other thing? The other role, which I think the board is absolutely, I mean, this is not news to anyone, it's absolutely critical, is that appointment of the chief executive. Get that right and your job's half done. Get it wrong and you're in big trouble.
So, giving you first right of answer here, because I know John's in the room, the role of management versus the role of the board.
I mean, honestly, I agree with all of that. If you've got a good chief CEO, then the job's half done. And there you go, my chief executive is in the room. Well done, John. In our case, the employer appointees on the board all have pretty strong management experience themselves. And I think it's down to all of us not to over-engage. There is that tendency. There are times I'd love to sort of push John out of the way. Say, John, I think this is how you should do it. But it doesn't work. But I think certainly a lot of the employer appointees all come at this from that same perspective. And you've just got to have a board. You've just got to check yourself and do it. I think that's what you were saying as well here. That's why quite a lot of work is going to go into the delegated authorities as well. That you really have got to think about giving the authority right the way down the line. You don't want the operational decisions to come roaring back up to you on the board, the decisions, because that is going to, and it goes back to the earlier point I was making about efficiency, that if you want funds to run efficiently and back offices to run efficiently, you've got to empower them and then sit back and let them do it.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's very much about the strategic role of the board and empowering them to get on and operationalise it and come back if there are any major concerns. And I think that probably we had the advantage of being a task force where we had to keep moving things up to keep on top of them. So we do operate at a very strategic level, I think, at the HESTA board.
So can I ask a double question, which I know is not a good thing to do? If we're talking about operations and management potentially setting stuff up, can we have a discussion around board papers? And what I've heard some CEOs, not me, say the hamster wheel of board meetings and board papers. And then what is a good relationship, or what does a good relationship look like between the chair and the CEO? Juliet, I can see you're itching.
The board paper issue. I've been around so long that obviously I've seen the change from board papers being delivered as a paper packet to your beautiful board vantage or any of these multitude of apps that there are. And I think if you did a study on what has happened since that electronic delivery, you would find that the pages have multiplied incredibly. And I think it is beholden upon us as boards to make sure that management do not get away with that. It is the art of writing a short, succinct board paper is a real art, and lumbering boards with masses of paperwork is not something that I support. And in fact, I keep going back to it. These are the board's papers. They're not management's papers. And boards, I think, need to take steps if they're getting too much paperwork. And it's statewide. Finally, I'm getting there. I'm getting to the right amount of paperwork that's coming through. I just reject things now. Just,
all right.
Oh yes. Well, I always sit down with the chief executive and go through the agenda, and if it's not appropriate, we'll say so. Because it's our paper, it's our board meetings, it's not theirs.
Right. Okay. So you think it's coming from management rather than boards? There's also, you do get your operational board members who want to see everything, but we can do that with some links that are not actually, we have to be careful about this from a legal perspective, being a former lawyer, as to what counts as board papers and what doesn't, but we have our repositories that they of policy procedures, a whole lot that they can all go off and information papers they can refer to, but the actual board papers will become
much better, I think, in structuring. And that also goes to the relationship, as you said, between the board and the chief executive and the chair and the chief executive. It tries to say it needs to be open and honest, but it really does. That integrity, honesty is just critical, and if that relationship is tested, that can be very, very difficult. And I've been through that situation, not necessarily with statewide, and it doesn't work. And you need to also not be too friendly with your chief executive, is my view as well. That I've seen that be a difficulty as well, because I think you're not objective on either side. I have a very good relationship with our new chief executive. I'm in contact with him at least once or twice a week, and he knows he can call me at any time, and I know I can call him at any time. But I'm not in there interfering with him, and there's one thing, it's no surprises.
Nick, again,
Well, please,
John's in the room.
once again, listening to those comments, all we said, right? I mean, they are a bit like mushrooms, aren't they? These things keep popping up. Somebody on the board asked for a schedule. It was asked for 2 years ago, and he got the schedule. It wasn't quite right, so they did a bit better the following one, and then it becomes institutionalised. And then these things just are popping up all the way through. So one issue is you've got to keep going back and saying, well, what do we really want this stuff for? Even an excellent organisation like SAS Super, there are schedules in our board papers, which I do wonder about myself, and I am prone to flick through. So I think it's a wake-up call for all of us, isn't it, to just go back and say, do we really, really want this thing? And the other serious thing here is the use you're going to make of the various subcommittees as well. That we all have subcommittees in various guises. Clearly, a lot of stuff can go to subcommittees, and then should only come back to the board, noting somewhere near the back of the pack, so it doesn't get a lot of attention devoted to it. But it also raises, in my mind, that whole interesting question that at some stage you need to revisit what the subcommittees are correctly doing. It's something which has been in my mind, which we haven't really talked about very much at SAS Super, that some of the workload in some of the subcommittees is now getting disproportionate, and there's not enough time, even the subcommittee, to look at the number of papers going through. So perhaps you have to further split the subcommittees into more focused teams, so you've got manageable chunks of paper to deal with.
Okay. Ange?
I tend to be suggesting delegate more rather than add more papers to committees. We were a very early adopter of the iPad, and I think our pages went like this very fast. But a couple of years ago, we moved. I suggested maybe we needed to move to PowerPoint on our board papers, and that has created quite a bit of discipline. That things have to be succinct, tell the story, get across really quickly. It is a work in progress. Obviously, it's the nature of executives that they want to tell the board all of the good things that they're doing. So you do have to say, well, this is what we want to hear. We want to hear about outcomes. We don't want to hear about all of the activity that's going on. We really need to hear about outcomes. We'd love to hear about all of those things, but you've got to respect the time that board members put into reading papers, and I think there really is an art to doing it. It's a work in progress. It's something that it's a regular conversation between myself and the CEO. I think we've nailed it across most of the organisation. Investments is a difficult area to really tell the stories succinctly. Got a lot of new board members, so that's a challenge, a work in progress challenge that we're working on. Question of the relationship with the CEO, I do think it needs to be open and honest, not best friends, not competitive, equal sharing of information. I think information has to go both ways. And I think in many cases the chair has to check their ego, because you do want to get involved in things that is interesting, but you've got to stand back. It's the CEO's role to do all of that.
Do you think with the move to PowerPoint that you'll have board papers by pictures? Are there any questions?
I like pictures.
Yeah, online.
Just
It'd be
no
good.
grams, I'd be happy.
Are there any questions anyone wants to raise at this stage? Not yet. There is one.
Hi Tom, Helen Good. Just going back to the beginning, if I could, people were talking about some of the challenges for growth and so forth. I'm just wondering how people on the panel see the continuing change in the workforce, particularly in some areas where there's a lot of casualisation, people being set up as self-employed or contractors, not so committed perhaps to superannuation, and I'm just wondering how you see that, if that continues to grow at the rate it has, impacting on funds and their ability to deliver some of the benefits like insurance, how it might impact on investments and liquidity and so forth.
We'd like to have a go at that.
The issue is one which certainly gets a lot of attention. It affects the quality of your member service interface, I think, quite a lot. The good example, and I'll talk about it from State Super's point of view, and also from Pillar's point of view, if I can, and I apologise now to Chief Executive of Pillar, who also happens to be in the room here, but in the case of a complex fund like State Super, the level of expertise which we depend on our call centre operators, for example, to answer defined benefit type questions, it's a very high dependence we've got. So when you get a very high level of staff turnover in your call centres or indeed in your data centres, that can have a real impact on customer satisfaction and the way we deal with customers. Now, in the case of Pillar, we've been fortunate that our back office has been outsourced to an organisation who are based down in Wollongong, where the rate of staff turnover is a lot less, so we don't face that problem quite so badly. Increasingly, though, things may change, and so the next level of defence against that rate of casualisation is to build an IT system which does more and more and more in terms of answering client questions. So even if you've got that casual worker coming in, they can be made effective much more quickly using an integrated, smart, intelligent computer system than would have been the case perhaps 10 years ago when they had to be trained in the use of multiple systems. So I guess that's a long way of saying IT becomes really, really important as a way of addressing that risk.
But I think that also goes back to something that Angela, you were talking about in terms of the risk, reputational risk to super. In South Australia, I can see it happening. Increased casualisation, increased number of small benefit, small account balances, and people say, I mean, I even had a discussion last night with a 34-year-old son saying, oh mum, I've only got this little amount, it's not worth it, and I just say, no, you've got to be together, and that's right, but it is a reputation they cannot see at that age, when he's moving around in various jobs and whatever, that having that superannuation is something that he really needs to feel is important in his life and he needs to build up, and that reputational risk I think we've got at the moment.
And I think from our perspective, it's also about that those members won't get the retirement outcomes that they need. So it's more about that than the operational impact that it'll have on the fund. I think it's how we actually improve the level of contribution and outcomes at the end of the day. And that's more of a, I guess operationally, that's more of a challenge.